Okay, I get to go after two poets. I mean, I think poets are, in terms of the writing community, they're like the magic unicorns. They pick the perfect word and they match them together, and I'm just in awe. So I'm gonna do my best. And in terms of the theme of telling, I think this actually matches my book really well. I wrote this book that came out in April, The Honey Bus, and it's a memoir about my beekeeping childhood with my grandfather in Big Sur. And the reason I was raised by my grandpa is because my parents divorced, and my mother fell into mental illness and depression, and I never saw my father again. So my grandfather quietly took care of me by bringing me into his bee yards. And he would tell me stories about bees and how they behave and how they're the perfect social living group. They're like the opposite of a dysfunctional family. So I'm going to read you a little section about how he would do that, how he would take care of me through metaphor about bees. Thank you, Peg, and thank you, Why There Are Words, and Studio 333. I feel like 27% cooler just standing around this like beautiful art and space. I don't know how you do it. And quick question, the roller disco sign, is that from DJ Miles and Burning Man's roller disco by any chance? Okay. No?
We'll look into that.
Look into that. All right. I might have done the hustle there. But I'm just saying. All right. The only thing you need to know is that Rita is a dachshund. Okay. I was bouncing on the passenger side of Grandpa's work truck with my feet resting on a set of clanking metal toolboxes. It was a Chevy half-ton that farted like an old man, and once upon a time used to be glossy yellow, but now was weathered to the dull texture of chalk and pockmarked with rust. The odometer had flipped over to 0 at least twice that he could remember before it eventually stopped spinning. The windshield was crusted with dead bugs and mustard yellow dots of bee poop, which Grandpa couldn't remove with the wipers because they also had stopped working years ago. His truck was a handyman's flea market on wheels. Everything he might need for beekeeping or plumbing jobs was tied to the contractor's rack, crammed in the back bed, or jammed somewhere in the cab. The dashboard was packed several inches high with a nest of pipe fittings, grease pencil stubs, and balled up bits of beeswax. I was wedged into a small space he cleared for me on the bench seat. His dog Rita was in her usual spot, curled on an old pillowcase beneath his seat, safe from falling objects. The three of us literally clattered down the road, creating a jangling chorus every time we hit a bump and jostled Grandpa's collection of things that might come in handy someday. When we turned off Carmel Valley Road south onto Highway 1 and entered Big Sur, nature woke up and suddenly started doing the can-can. Everywhere I looked, the jagged mountains were tumbling into the sea, like rock slides frozen in free fall. We navigated a thin, winding ribbon of road, hundreds of feet above the exploding surf. I rolled the window down and heard sea lions barking and waves booming into sea caves below. The spicy aroma of sage mixed with sea salt wafted into the truck. We dipped down into forests where the air dropped 10 degrees and the massive redwood trees clustered together in tribal circles. Then we burst back into the sun again. I twisted my head in every direction, trying not to miss a thing. Finally, we came to a small wildflower meadow, and Grandpa cut the engine. At one edge of the clearing was a city of white vertical beehives, each with a small cloud of black dots waggling before it. Grandpa opened his door, and Rita's long body shot out from underneath his seat, eager to hunt in the thicket. "Get along, little doggy," he sang after her. "Oh, wait a minute," he said, watching her gather speed on 6-inch legs. "I already have a long little doggy." Grandpa laughed so hard his false teeth jiggled loose. We put our bee veils on, then he lifted a burlap sack from the truck, fished inside for a dry cow patty, broke it apart, and shoved the pieces into the can of the bee smoker. He lit the dung with a match, closed the lid, and squeezed the bellows a few times to stoke the flame. "Okay, smoke 'em," Grandpa said. When I had smoked most of the bees off the top bars of the hive, he lifted a frame out. "Look here, where I'm pointing." I let out a small gasp. The queen was so obviously the queen. She was elegantly tapered, twice the size of the other bees, and with longer legs that looked like they belonged on a spider. Her abdomen was so heavy with eggs that it dragged behind her as she walked. Like bodyguards parting the crowd for a pop star, an entourage of bees formed a protective circle around her and cleared a path as she moved. She rushed across the honeycomb like she was late for something. Her royalty was apparent in the way the other bees grew visibly excited when she came near, rushing up to caress her with their antennae, some even wrapping their forearms around her head in what looked like an embrace. The only word for their behavior was worship. "Why do they touch her like that?" "They're gathering her special scent and passing it to the rest of the bees," Grandpa said. "That's how they know which hive is theirs. Every queen has her own smell. Her daughters never forget it." It's true, mothers have an aroma. Mine smelled like Charlie perfume and Vantage cigarettes, mixed with the faint musk of other people's clothes from the church thrift shop. It was a unique scent that I recognized instantly whenever I climbed into the bed we shared. I thought of Mom at that moment, passing the hours under the covers. I wished she could see this queen, how an insect was so perfectly designed to be a mother, how the queen was the heartbeat of a whole stunning society operating right under our noses. There were so many fascinating things happening outside Mom's four walls, but she was missing out on all of it. Her days came and went without little miracles like this to lift her spirit. The queen padded along the honeycomb with the impatience of the very pregnant. She seemed to be weary of all the attention, refusing to slow down for every bee that wanted to touch her as she single-mindedly searched for something. Every few steps, she ducked her head into one of the honeycomb cells, then retreated. She checked chamber after chamber, hunting. I asked Grandpa what she was looking for. "Good spot to lay an egg," he whispered. "Gotta be clean, well built. Can't have an egg already in there." The queen was picky about her nursery, but finally she found a space to her liking and backed her abdomen into it. As she crouched there for a second, her attendant bees came in close as if to tell her a secret. The queen then did a little push-up with her legs and exited. I peered at the hexagon cell where she'd just been and spied a white pin inside, like a miniature grain of rice, standing on end, perfectly centered on the back wall. Two nurse bees dipped their heads into the cell to verify her work. I had never seen anything born before and realized I'd just seen my first miracle.